Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to go over all of Meghan Markle's most notable outfits of 2025. So buckle up, it's kind of a disaster. There are a few GMP moments, but also some absolute fashion crimes in this lineup. Before we jump in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the hype button, if you feel like it, of course. And if you missed it, we already did a full 2025 recap. Let's get into it. One of the absolute worst outfits of 2025 was the look she wore to Kris Jenner's birthday party. And honestly, this photo says everything. It makes her stomach look extremely prominent and oddly straight, which is very unflattering to her shape. The bust area looks squished and strange, her posture is awkward, and the outfit adds a ton of bulk to her waist. It does absolutely nothing for her figure. On top of that, it looks embarrassingly cheap. It didn't even match the theme. The top looks too tight, the blacks don't match, and the entire thing was just awful, truly embarrassing. A lot of people think that's why she asked for the photos to be taken down. Meghan also doesn't have a particularly long neck. It's not that she's super petite. She really isn't. We've seen her next to very small women who are around 5 feet tall, and she's noticeably taller than them. She's average height, maybe even slightly above average. I know some of you in the comments will say, no, she's like 5'2", but she's really not that tiny. She's very slim, yes, but not especially short, because her neck isn't long. Turtlenecks don't do her any favors. They take away length that she could really benefit from visually. I have the same issue. I'm very petite, barely over 5 feet, and too much fabric around my neck makes me look like just a face sitting on shoulders. And that's basically the effect happening here with this outfit. It was probably the worst look of 2025. I ranked the white Balenciaga show outfit as the second worst, mostly because at least it's better constructed than the Kris Jenner party disaster. That one was just tragic. It looked ridiculously cheap. At least this Balenciaga piece looks like quality fabric. It has movement, softness, some flow to it. So yes, the material itself is nice. But everything else is terrible. This is full. On grandma chic, it would look fantastic on an actual grandma. Not on Meghan. There's so much bulk and heaviness around the top, which not only shortens her neck visually when she really needs something like a V-neck, but also adds width to her shoulders. The whole thing is frumpy, messy, and unflattering. And the way she walked in it and carried herself made it even worse than the outfit alone. Just a bad match for her overall. Next up is this strange blue outfit she wore for the Project Healthy Minds conference, or whatever it was. The popped collar, the sleeves rolled and shoved up. It all looks very try-hard. The GMPs are way too big. At least they're not pulled up to her chest this time, but they're extremely wrinkled, and the volume of the pants is just excessive. It makes those pointy heels sticking out look ridiculous. Overall, this look was messy, frumpy, and honestly kind of funny. The worst outfit from the With Love Meghan series is this one. I'm not going to go through every look from that show since we already did a couple of fashion breakdowns on those truly awful outfits. But this one deserves a mention. She did that ridiculous popped collar thing again, which never looks good. The shirt is wrinkled, oversized, shapeless, and then she tied it around her waist, like a 12-year-old playing dress. It adds even more bulk to her torso and makes her look boxier and more top-heavy. Pairing it with a slim midi skirt just exaggerates her upper body even more. It's such a strange choice. One of the biggest giveaways that this shirt is way too big is the shoulder seam. The seam where the sleeve meets the shoulder should sit right at the edge of your shoulder. It shouldn't be way in toward your neck, which would mean it's too small. And it definitely shouldn't be hanging way down your arm, which means it's far too big. We've got another shirt here that's way too big, and it just looks ridiculous. Next is this dress she wore in New York City. They went out to a restaurant and claimed they had dinner with Ed Sheeran. And awkwardly enough, he later said he didn't even know they were there. They were simply at the same place at the same time, and then leaked to the press that they ate together. Such a strange thing to do. But anyway, back to the outfit. We've seen this dress before. I think it was from the Cut interview, or was it Variety? I'm pretty sure it was the Cut, from that awful, disastrous photo shoot. Here, the dress is at least hemmed to a reasonable length, but the shoes she paired with it are the same ones from the Balenciaga show, and they are far too big, way too pointy, and way too long for her. She already has long feet and thin, lanky limbs, so pointy-toed shoes are something she really needs to avoid, no matter how trendy they are. Trends aren't for everyone, and pointed toes are not for Meghan. They just make her feet look even longer. Look at how massive her feet appear compared to the rest of her body. It's wild, it looks completely absurd. On top of that, the dress itself is heavy and bulky, especially around the torso, and her posture here is terrible. The way she's holding her body makes everything look worse. Also, this was winter in New York City. It's freezing. Why is she sleeveless? One of the funniest outfits of 2025 showed up early in the year at the Time 100 Summit, featuring the biggest GMPs we have ever witnessed. These giant man pants are so enormous you could probably cut 3 pairs out of them. They're insane. The amount of fabric is laughable. It does not look good. This kind of volume only works on someone extremely tall, ultra-slender and model-esque. Someone who can truly pull it off. On a person of average height, it's never going to work, and especially not if you have a short torso like Meghan, because there simply isn't enough vertical space for that ultra. High rise. You can see it here. The crotch is giving full drop. Crotch energy, which is never flattering. The pants are puddling on the floor, they're gigantic, and they just look stupid. Then she pushes up the sleeves of her blazer, which leans even harder into that messy thrown-together look. It's not chic, it's not polished, and it's definitely not professional. It just looks sloppy and amateur. There's also zero attention to detail. The belt is crooked. Everything looks ill, fitting, wrinkled, and poorly styled. You'd think someone who insists on having her title announced before entering rooms would care a little more about how she actually presents herself. This next outfit is one we haven't talked about before on the channel. She took an oversized coat and belted it over black trousers during her Harper's Bazaar photo shoot. She must have been feeling herself that day and decided to get adventurous. The result, extremely bulky and frumpy through the torso. The heavy fabric plus the belt layered on top adds a ton of visual weight. This kind of styling only works if you have a very defined waist, and you cinch the belt tightly enough to show it. That is the only scenario where this approach works. Her belt isn't tight enough. The coat is far too voluminous, and she doesn't have a defined waist to begin with. So her body type simply doesn't support this style experiment. It was silly. Honestly, kind of funny that she even tried. Another disaster that deserves a spot near the bottom of the list is what she wore for part 2 of the Bloomberg interview. An oversized, wrinkled white shirt with messy rolled up sleeves and super skinny white jeans. Once again, this exaggerates her upper body, makes her torso look larger, and makes her legs look even thinner and more lanky by comparison, which is the exact opposite of what Meghan needs. Let's quickly break down Meghan's body structure and her main styling issues for anyone who isn't familiar, so this all makes a bit more sense from a practical wardrobe perspective. The widest point on Meghan Markle's body is her shoulder line. I always start with that when thinking about styling. Whatever the widest part of your body is, will naturally carry the most visual weight. So when you're choosing outfits or getting dressed, that area is always going to dominate visually. Whether you want it to or not, it just does. That's why you have to style with that in mind first to create balance. And that doesn't automatically mean the only solution is to add volume to the opposite area. So for Meghan, her shoulders are the widest part of her body. That doesn't mean she has to automatically add volume to her lower half with flared skirts or wide dresses. That's one option for creating balance. Sure, but it's not the only one. Another approach is using color, wearing darker shades on top and lighter ones on the bottom, or keeping the top solid and adding pattern below. And the volume itself doesn't need to be extreme, like we saw at the Time 100 event, because that was completely over the top. Skinny jeans don't provide enough balance, but a straight leg pant like this is ideal. It doesn't highlight her thin, lanky legs, but it does add just enough visual weight to balance her shoulders without going so far that it looks like she's drowning in. Oversized clothing. Her next styling challenge is her short, boxy torso. She doesn't have a very defined waist, and combined with a shorter torso, that naturally makes styling more difficult, but it's not impossible. The key is to avoid drawing attention directly to the waistline, and if she's going to tuck in a shirt, it helps to blouse it slightly, the way she sometimes does with pencil skirts, pulling the fabric up just a bit so it drapes softly. That creates the illusion of a waist. Even here, you can kind of fake it with a little blousing. When you don't have a naturally defined waist, that extra looseness above the waistband gives the impression that there's more shape underneath. That's much better than what she did for the Drew Barrymore interview, where everything was tucked tightly in, paired with a thick belt and lots of bulk around the lower abdomen. Instead of that, something softer and more subtle suggests a waistline and creates better balance. Also, having pants pulled all the way up to your boots or shoes is never flattering mid-rise, or even low. Rise trousers and jeans are far more effective for someone with a short torso than high-rise styles will ever be. Another important point is to avoid adding bulk to a short torso that already lacks definition. Thick belts, extra pleats, or any additional weight around the midsection will only make that area look larger and more boxy. So those are things she should steer clear of. Her third major styling issue is her long, thin limbs. Part of that is because her torso is shorter, which makes her legs look even longer by comparison. But she also genuinely has long arms, and both her arms and legs are quite slender for her. Wearing tops that aren't oversized helps minimize that effect. And honestly, she should also avoid going sleeveless so often, because sleeveless styles pull attention straight to the arms and make them look even smaller compared to her torso, or make her torso appear larger by comparison. We see that clearly in the Drew Barrymore outfit, which is another contender for worst look. The massive GMPs and chunky fit create that exact problem. Her long, skinny limbs look even more disproportionate next to a torso that's been bulked up by oversized trousers. Some body types are easier to dress straight off the rack than others and require less tailoring. When you have a short torso or a long torso, adjusting the leg-to-torso ratio becomes really important, and tailoring matters more than it does for someone with naturally balanced proportions. Meghan is definitely someone who needs tailoring to make clothing look right on her. And this coat is a perfect example. The coat itself is fine. The style could work on her. Yes, it has a large lapel, but the vertical row of buttons down the front helps elongate her silhouette and draw the eye downward, which offsets the heaviness around the collar and shoulders. That vertical line actually helps with balance, but the big mistake is that it wasn't hemmed properly. It's still too long. Coats can be long, of course, but on Meghan it just looks excessive, like she borrowed someone else's coat that doesn't fit her. It ends up looking awkward and oversized rather than intentional. And part of this comes down to how she carries herself. She often appears self-conscious in her clothes, and that impression is made worse by the constant fidgeting, pushing up her sleeves, tugging at fabric, touching her hair non-stop. Whether that insecurity is real or not doesn't even matter. Constantly fiddling with your outfit, your hair, your face, your body. It all reads as nervous and uncomfortable, and it inevitably makes even a decent outfit look worse. But with this coat, it just looks overly long. If it had been hemmed even an inch or two shorter, it would have looked much better. Let's move on to the night she and Harry accepted that humanitarian award for Parents Network, only to later announce that Parents Network had been shut down. You have to laugh. This outfit wasn't appropriate for the event itself, but the suit jacket was actually tailored fairly well to her. You can see here that it's riding up slightly and bunching a bit in this particular photo, which is unfortunate, but overall, it does taper in at the waist. It's not too long and not too short, so it actually creates decent balance for her figure. My main issue is with the trousers. They're too tight through the thigh and knee, which causes that exaggerated flare at the bottom. It looks a bit dated. If they were straighter through the leg with just a subtle flare, they would have worked much better and balanced her torso more effectively. Right now, her thighs and knees still look too slim compared to the blazer, and that's only because the pants are clinging too tightly in that area. And again, the flare just isn't really on trend at the moment, so it doesn't quite land. That said, the amount of volume at the bottom of the trousers is actually Right for Meghan. It's much better than those massive wide leg pants and GMPs she usually goes for. I also preferred the ponytail here instead of her usual heavy worn-down hairstyle. It looks cleaner and more polished. The worst part of the look was the lack of a camisole or any kind of undershirt. With one, it would have looked far more professional and appropriate for the occasion. Next is the black dress from the Balenciaga Paris Fashion Week disaster. I liked this one more than the white version. Actually, a lot more. It's hemmed properly, not dragging on the floor, and the asymmetrical design helps minimize the look of her wide shoulders. It creates some visual balance. Even though one long skinny arm is fully on display and drawing the eye, the rest of the dress drapes nicely, and the asymmetry is quite flattering for her body type. Then we have the oversized yellow shirt paired with the pleated skirt from the Bloomberg interview. These sandals were not a good choice. They don't really work with the yellow and clash a bit. Overall, I don't love this outfit, but it's still better than several of the others we just talked about. The sweater is too big. It's meant to be oversized, sure, but it doesn't pair well with this skirt. I think the skirt would have looked much better with a more fitted, standard knit sweater on top. The oversized shirt just made everything feel too casual, too sloppy, and a little frumpy, like it wasn't fully thought through. It almost looked underdressed. Next is this dress, which she owns in at least 2 other colors. The white version here, the blue one she wore, and I think there's even a pinstripe version from the Netflix series. I'm not 100% certain, but they look like the same dress. In the blue version, she unbuttoned it way too far, which just looks strange. Try hard, attention, seeking. It's odd. I like it better buttoned up in white, but the halter, style cut, where it comes in at the collar and exposes more shoulder, draws the eye straight to her shoulders, which is her widest point. Normally, that would be a bad idea. However, the skirt has enough volume that it actually balances out her shoulders. It prevents them from looking overly broad compared to the rest of her body, because the skirt provides the right amount of counterweight visually. Her biggest mistake with this dress, in every color, is the bow tied across the front. She would have been much better off tying it in the back in a slimmer way so that the front just had a simple band, or skipping the belt entirely. That would have created a cleaner, more streamlined front and avoided pulling attention to her waist or adding bulk there. Because as you can see, the belt makes her torso look larger and immediately draws your eye to the middle. You try to take in the whole outfit, but your focus keeps snapping back to the belt. It's bulky, it points in different directions than the buttons, and it breaks up the vertical line of the dress. So the belt really ruined it. Otherwise, it could have been decent. It is slightly too voluminous for her thin limbs, but you can't fix every styling issue with every single outfit. Sometimes 1 or 2 things will slip through, and that's fine. If most of the proportions are balanced, the look will still work far better than if nothing is balanced at all. Also, this dress has a collar and strong, structured buttons. Here the hair is a bit heavier and chunkier. She probably would have done better with a ponytail or even a half-up style. Honestly, a half-up look would have been really cute with this dress. Wearing it fully down along with that collar just adds extra bulk around the neck area, which isn't ideal for her neckline and shoulders. Next, we have an outfit that's fine. Not terrible, but definitely not amazing either. She's wearing this gray blazer with a very heavy, chunky lapel, which is a bit much for Meghan. Underneath, the black outfit is very simple. The wide leg trousers aren't extremely wide, so they're not overwhelming. And because the look underneath is monochrome, it's slimming and doesn't draw attention to her waistline. Those are all positives, and for once, she didn't aggressively bunch up the sleeves, which is a win. Earlier in the year, she went to see a Broadway show or something like that, and she wore this black button-down that was a little too tight, with those messy rolled-up sleeves, which I hate, always have, always will. But the houndstooth pencil skirt is actually a good silhouette for her, and here she managed to apply one of the styling tips I mentioned earlier, a pattern on the bottom with a dark solid color on top. That combination helps balance her widest point, her shoulders, really well. That's why this outfit ranks closer to the better ones. The pattern pulls the eye downward and adds visual weight, while the dark top blends in and doesn't compete for attention. It creates better balance between her shoulders, torso, and lower half. Yes, the skirt is a bit high. Yes, The shirt doesn't fit perfectly, and no, the outfit isn't incredible, but it's far more balanced than most of the others. So this is a great example of how powerful pattern placement can be when paired with solid or dark colors at your widest point to create a more harmonious silhouette. If Meghan were shaped instead, she'd want to flip that, maybe a plain black midi skirt with a pattern top. Next up is one of the best outfits of the year, what she wore to the Fortune Summit. I really liked the styling here. Her hair was clean and sleek without being pulled back too tightly. The shirt fabric was soft, which didn't emphasize her shoulders too much. Instead, the volume was controlled lower down at the cuffs. That also prevented her from doing the sleeve rolling thing, paired with the simple pencil skirt. It created a streamlined, elongated silhouette. The softness of the fabric balanced out her boxier torso, and overall, it looked quite nice. You can also see a bit of blousing at the waistband, which helps give the illusion of a more defined waist. And the collar forms a slight V-neck, which visually lengthens her neckline. So overall, this one was a success. There are a couple of minor issues. The shirt doesn't fit perfectly across the bust and shoulders, but compared to what we saw earlier, this was a huge improvement. Let me know in the comments what you thought was the biggest fashion disaster of the year, and which outfit you liked the most. Thank you so much for joining me for today's fashion edition. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you next time. Bye, Faye, and truly, there were some real fashion tragedies this year. A lot of leaning into that grandma chic direction. No offense to the grandmas at all, because these looks would be fantastic on mature women. They'd suit them beautifully, but on Meghan, I don't know. She's kind of aging herself with these choices, pushing herself into a category she probably doesn't intend. She seems to think she's appealing to a younger audience, and she's really not. So let's take that into account too.